Welcome to my channel. Today, I'm going to be sharing my ultimate goalkeeper gear guide as someone who's played professional soccer and who's just played the position my entire life. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Brittany Eisenhower. I played Division I college soccer at the University of Denver and professional soccer for Angel City FC and the Orlando Pride in the NWSL. And yes, I'm one of the crazy people that have been a goalkeeper my entire life, but that does make me qualified to give you the ultimate list of goalkeeper gear, so let's get into it. Starting off with the most obvious piece of gear, goalkeeper gloves. I feel like I've tried out every single brand of gloves known to man during my career, but I do have my favorites. Growing up when I played competitive club soccer, I mostly wore Nike gloves, but from what I remember, they were just super expensive, maybe at least the model I got, and they didn't last very well. And in college, I wore Adidas gloves because we were an Adidas sponsored school, and I didn't hate them, but again, I feel like the grip was okay. They lasted okay. I didn't get a ton of gloves, but I feel like I remember some games my grip was barely holding on for dear life. When I started playing professional soccer for the Orlando Pride in the NWSL is when I started wearing Titan gloves. They sent me some gloves before my rookie season to try because they wanted to sponsor me, but I really wanted to make sure I loved these gloves before I partnered with any glove company because it sounded like a nightmare to me to partner with a company and only be able to wear their gloves if I hated the gloves. But I actually ended up loving these gloves. I had never tried them before, but for the price point that they're at, I actually feel like they're a super solid glove. Of course, they have different models, but every single model I got, the grip was really good, and I would say it lasted pretty well. I'm gonna be honest, when I got to the professional level, I'm not necessarily the best advocate for which gloves last the longest because luckily I was very blessed that these glove companies sponsored me, so I would trade out my gloves every 2 to 4 weeks depending on how much I would wear them. But I do think the Titan gloves hold up pretty well if you take care of them. I was playing in Florida at the time and it was super rainy, super muddy, so I would wash my gloves pretty much after every training session and just hang them to dry, and they did pretty good. The most recent gloves that I've worn are the brand Sport. These are the ones that I would wear, and these gloves are probably my favorite gloves of all time. Like I said, I don't really know how durable they are, but the grip on these were insane. I feel like the ball would just stick to these gloves. Again, I think if you took care of these gloves really well, they would last a pretty long time, and that brings me to the topic of glove care. A lot of goalkeepers ask about glove glue or glove wash, and honestly, I've never really consistently used either. I think the key, instead of trying to spray sticky stuff on your gloves, is just to take really good care of your gloves. Hop in the shower with your gloves after practice. I'm not kidding, I know it sounds weird, but just wash them with water, no soap. Hang them to dry. I promise you'll be pretty amazed on how well this actually helps your gloves last. I used glove glue for a while, but honestly, that's when I was so focused on thinking that my gloves were the thing that was catching the ball. When I realized, oh, it's just proper form that helps you catch the ball, I felt like I relied a lot less on just overthinking about how sticky my gloves were. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I feel like glove glue or sticky glove stuff is kind of just a crutch for not learning how to catch the ball properly. Of course, you want good quality gloves, but for me, it just made me overthink everything, thinking that the gloves were gonna do the catching for me. When it comes to finger save versus non-finger save, I personally never wore finger saves, but I do think they could be beneficial for young athletes. I may not be the best person to recommend no finger saves though, because I don't know if you can see this, but I've definitely broken a few fingers during my career, so play with no finger saves at your own risk. For me, I just felt like they were so restrictive. I personally love the feeling of not having this big, crazy, bulky glove. Honestly, the more minimal, the better for me, but everyone has their own preferences, and luckily there are a bunch of different gloves for whatever your preference is. I will say, even though there are gloves that I have liked, I've never really loved any pair of gloves. Like, I really feel like they need to look cooler, they need to last longer. Maybe with how picky I am, I should make my own brand of goalkeeper gloves. Maybe that's something I do in the future. Also, I'm gonna be linking every single one of my gear recommendations on my profile under Ultimate Goalkeeper Gear Guide if you wanna check those out. Okay, moving on to cleats. Most recently during my pro soccer career, I'd be wearing the Nike Mercurial 9 firm ground. There are so many words in this, you know what I'm talking about. I'll put a picture up here, but I really liked them. They were really light. I felt really quick in them. I don't think they're necessarily made for goalkeepers. I feel like they're like a striker shoe, but I really liked them. Some other recommendations that I've heard are great for goalkeepers are the Nike Tiempo Legend, the Adidas Predator Accuracy, and the Puma. How do you say it? Puma Future Ultimate. I personally haven't tried those, but I'm sure they're great. Moving on to socks. I personally had a great experience with wearing grip socks to both training and games. I just feel like for the side-to-side movements we do, the jumping, the diving, they just made me feel a whole lot more powerful. It took me a minute to get used to them though. Honestly, at first I was like, what is in my shoe? I thought they were gonna give me blisters, but I really do think they make a difference. Maybe it's just in my head, I don't know. My personal favorite that I wore are the tape design socks, but there are a lot of other cheaper options out there. And at the end of the day, it's a sock with some sticky stuff on it. I'm sure you can't really go wrong. Next up, we've got protective gear. So I personally have never worn any padded clothing except for probably when my parents bought me a goalkeeper jersey when I was like 8 years old. It probably had the padded elbows and everything, and it was bright orange and choked me at the neck. It seems like a pretty vivid memory. But to me, I feel like the padded stuff really restricts me and honestly isn't super necessary unless you're training on a super hard field. My personal opinion is that diving shouldn't really hurt that bad if you have the right form, again, unless you're on a field that is rock hard. But something I would do was I would wear leggings and a long sleeve top to every single training session, even in Florida when it was 100 degrees outside. It makes no sense to me when I see goalkeepers, especially training on turf, at least with no leggings on. I can't comprehend how they could dive or like make a spread save without getting a crazy raspberry on their body. And I've had people online call me soft before for talking about wearing leggings and protective gear, but to me, as a professional athlete or even as a college or competitive athlete, your body is your tool and you want to protect your tool as much as possible. So if I could go out and do the same training session and not beat up my body and feel good the next day and perform better, why would I not do that? But what has been difficult is that when I wear leggings, I would get crazy holes in them multiple times per season. And I honestly don't think there's a way to prevent this, but there are a couple of leggings that I found that hold up pretty well and stay up while you're running and jumping and all that stuff. So these are a couple of my favorites. And then when it comes to long sleeves, I get stuff that's pretty fitted, but for when it's warmer, I get one that's more of like a dry fit material. And when it's colder, I wear an Under Armour. And then what I do, which is key to not getting the raspberries on your side when you dive, is I tuck the long sleeve shirt into the leggings and pull the leggings up pretty high so they stay put during the training. I feel like at the professional level, pretty much every single goalkeeper wears leggings at training. So if you think it's weird, it's not weird. Protect your body. Moving on, water bottle. In my mind, there is only one water bottle that goalkeepers should be using, and that is the Gatorade squeeze bottle. Trying to fuss with a cap or a lid while you have goalkeeper gloves on is the most frustrating thing in the world. So the Gatorade squeeze bottle is super easy. You can just squirt it in your mouth, take a drink, but you can also squirt it on your gloves when you need to dampen them up because we're not spitting on our gloves anymore. That's disgusting. Okay, I lied. I would probably still spit on my gloves if I needed to, if I was desperate, but most of the time I'm spraying water on them and the Gatorade water bottle is perfect for that. Next up is bags. The stinkiest things goalkeepers own are their cleats and their gloves, obviously. And so in my opinion, keeping those things separate from the rest of the things in your bag is very important. Most goalkeeper gloves come with the glove bag already, so just hold on to that, or this Adidas glove bag is a really good option. I also love this boot bag made by Salts, I think it is. I got it at my tournament this summer, but it has 2 separate compartments. It has a magnet that kind of holds them together. It has a handle. It's just a great option for keeping your boots separate from the rest of your stuff. But the key to both of these things not smelling too bad is to air them out after training, please. I say this like I've aired out my stuff every single training session. I haven't. I've had really stinky stuff, but it's still my recommendation. So just air out your stuff. Your teammates will thank you. Moving on to training gear, there is one essential that you need every single training session, and that thing is a towel. I didn't start using a towel during training sessions until I became a professional goalkeeper, but it made a world of difference for me. Not only can you use it to wipe off your sweat so you're not using your nasty gloves, but you can also use it to wipe off your gloves if it's like a super damp or rainy day. During our training sessions at the pro level, they would always water the fields before training, so they were super wet because they wanted to simulate a game environment, and during games, they always water the fields right before the game. But that would mean our gloves would get soaking wet, especially during warm-up, so this towel was a lifesaver. We just got ours from the training room, but I would just use something like this goalkeeper towel. Try it out. It will change your life. Some other gear I would recommend would be warm-up resistance bands. These are great to do activation with to get ready for training. Your coach might also have this stuff, so it might not be super essential to get for yourself unless you're doing training on your own, which I highly recommend, but an agility ladder and some hurdles. These things are great just to do obviously some agility, some jump work, and just training with. Next, moving on to recovery gear, the most simple but effective thing that you could own is a good foam roller. This one is my favorite one. I use it every single day, but again, it's a foam roller. You can't really go wrong. Some of the recovery things that I would use all the time are a massage gun and the recovery boots. These are the ones that I would use all the time because our team provided them. Honestly, they're really expensive to buy on your own, but they are probably worth the investment. But I was looking online and it seems like some brands are making way cheaper options, so these might be worth checking out too. Finally, my tech gear recommendations for goalkeepers. Every single year during my professional career, we would use something called the SportsStat GPS tracker. If you've ever seen soccer players, especially the men, looking like they're wearing bras, this is what that is. It's basically just a little tracker that goes in the back of your bra, and it tracks things like distance covered, accelerations, impacts, just a lot of important data that soccer players need. As a goalkeeper, obviously the distance covered is not the most important thing. I don't think we're covering that much distance on the field. But for me, it was super interesting to see like my impacts. For example, I was shown data where it showed me how many times I dove on my right side versus my left side. So it could kind of give you insight to, if you have a side that you favor or something you need to improve on. It would also show me stats on things like my time to accelerate, which as a goalkeeper, accelerating to beat someone to the ball is really important. So like I said, it just gives you a lot of valuable data, and I think they're really, really cool. Next up, the fitness wearable that I've been wearing for I think over 6 years now is the Whoop. Personally, I think Whoop gives the best data out there for athletes, things like sleep, recovery, training stats. I've tried a bunch of other fitness trackers. I actually have the Oura Ring on right now, but for an athlete, I think it gives you the best stats that you need to improve your training, improve your recovery, things like that. And I know you're wondering, how do you wear the Whoop band under your goalkeeper gloves? And my answer is I just shove my gloves on top of the Whoop band, but I've never really had a problem with it. It is a little bit more bulky, but I never notice it once I start training, and I've never broken my Whoop from training and diving on it, so I think it's fine. Finally, this one is probably super unnecessary, but I feel like it's changed my life, even though that sounds pretty dramatic, but it is an electric ball pump. The great thing about this is that it obviously pumps up the ball for you, but you can set the exact PSI that you want, so it pumps the ball up the same way every single time. I don't know, I've just trained with balls that are either way too flat or way too hard before, and so this thing is pure magic to me. I love it. And that completes my ultimate goalkeeper gear guide. Like I said, I'm going to be linking all this stuff on my profile under Ultimate Goalkeeper Gear Guide. Let me know in the comments if you think I missed anything or your favorite goalkeeper gear. I'm super interested to hear. Also, if you're a goalkeeper, a soccer player, an athlete, drop any questions you have for me in the comments and I might respond to them in a future video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.